Are you looking for inspiration on a daily basis? Then check out Deal to Heal Teas. With our inspirational teas, you're sure to find something to inspire you. That's dealtohealteas.com. Put some inspiration in your situation. Wear inspirational tea and be inspired all day. Let's go to dealtohealteas.com. Again, that's dealtohealteas.com. Hey guys, if you're enjoying this podcast, then I know you'll enjoy the Girl Dad Discussion podcast. I'm your host, Ernest James, and I believe the relationship between a daughter and her father is one of the most important relationships a young lady can have. And therefore, my mission is to promote the daddy-daughter relationship by sharing the voices of girl dads to the world. So check out our podcast on every platform where podcasts can be listened to. And if you want to watch the podcast, check us out on our YouTube channel. Again, that's the Girl Dad Discussions podcast with your host, Ernest James. Welcome to Deal to Heal with E. James podcast. On this podcast, my guest and I will discuss topics and ways to help us to heal in every area of our lives. I believe that everyone can live a life that is happy, healthy, and whole. So I'm on a mission to help people to deal, heal, and fulfill. Deal with your problem, heal from the pain, and fulfill your purpose. Thanks for tuning in. Let's get to it. Welcome to the Deal to Heal with E. James podcast. I am your host, Ernest James, and I believe that everyone can and should live a life that is whole, healed, and healthy. And therefore, I'm on a mission to help people to deal, to heal, and to fulfill, to deal with your problems, to heal from the pain, and to fulfill your purpose. Thank you guys once again for tuning in to the Deal to Heal with E. James podcast. If you haven't already, make sure that you listen, like, subscribe, and share to our podcast on all of our podcast listening platforms, as well as our YouTube channel. Also, make sure you go and check out our partner podcast, which is the Girl Dad Discussions podcast with E. James, on our YouTube channel, and also listen to them on all of your podcast listening platforms. Also, I'm gonna let you guys know how you can win $100 from the podcast. You can win $100 from the podcast, but you got to stay until the end in order to get that information. So thank you guys once again for tuning in to the Deal to Heal with E. James podcast. So today, just like any other day, we are blessed with the guest, Mr. Derrick. How you doing?
Phenomenal. That's my word for 2023, phenomenal.
Cool. First of all, let me say thank you, because you could be doing anything else, but you're here with me and my listeners, and we definitely appreciate it. So do me a favor, introduce yourself to my listeners and tell us who you are and what it is that you do.
Well, hello, everyone. I'm Derrick Lamar. I am the founder of Derrick Lamar He Speaks. I'm a motivational speaker and a mental performance coach. I help people get out of their own way so they can be their high performance selves.
All right. So Derrick, let's go back. Let's go back to the beginning. So tell us, who was Derrick before you became this version of yourself, and what was that initial incident that made you just like switch from being your regular self to, all right, now I'm gonna do something to inspire and uplift others?
All right, so I actually spent 25 years of my life in the United States Army. Through those 25 years, of course, I grew and I became a senior leader in the United States Army. Actually, I was a master sergeant. So a lot of responsibility with that, a lot of influence involved, and just guiding soldiers to live the best life they can, as well as be the best soldiers they can while serving. So once I retired, now there's a void. I'm no longer a leader. I'm the leader of my household. Like there aren't hundreds or in some cases, thousands of people that's waiting to see what I'm going to tell them to do to
Right.
lead them the way, right? So I had to fill a void, and I was trying to find my way, as many retirees do, just trying to find your way to fill the void from the thing that you've done for so long. Just in speaking to different people, I've always been told that I drop some knowledge, or I drop
Mhm.
some game, or I drop gems, or I give insightful advice, sound advice. So I actually took that in, and I decided to run with it. And it's been a journey, man. It's a beautiful thing just to know that you can have such a powerful impact on people's lives or even their mindset based on the words that you choose to say. Words have power.
Yeah, definitely, definitely. First of all, let me say thank you for your service.
Oh,
Um, my dad is a vet, and my sons are vets. I'm not. I wanted to be. I actually wanted to join the Marines when I was younger. That was what I wanted to do, and but I decided to do something different. By the time I was old enough to actually join, I had my mind on all this stuff, and so I went into construction instead.
mm,
So, but thank you for your service, and yeah, as you're like yourself, I'm also a speaker, and so I can definitely agree with you that our words have power, and this is a meaningful thing when you can speak life into someone and just your words change their whole outlook on something. I know briefly we were speaking before we started recording, and I was telling you that my prayer that I pray is that I could be the person that people come to when they're in need,
mm,
and the downside is that people always come to me when they're in need. So,
absolutely. Hey,
but like you said, that's what I pray for. To be able to help, whoever I can, when they're actually in need. You know, and so Derrick, I know we're moving forward and coming to the close of 1 year and close in the opening of a new year. So what's in store for Derrick? What road are you taking going into this new year?
so I I've spent a lot of time speaking about strategies that I call the shift, and these strategies are just strategies that I came up with to help people get unstuck, help people kind of get out of their own way. Well, for the upcoming year, for 2024, for this remarkable year that's ahead of us, I'm going to dive deeper into that. I'm going to dive deeper into that by focusing on living an intentional life. Like intentional living is going to change lives by itself. It's going to create the shift
Right.
that's necessary in whatever area of your life that's needed.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Actually, my so what I started doing last year, um, I think I started probably the year before, but I definitely started last year. I choose certain words to help carry me through the year to focus on. And intentional was one of my words for this year. Being intentional and focus was
Mhm.
my two words for this year. And pretty much I stayed on it, and so I definitely know, being intentional uh is something when you get your mind focused and making sure that your choices and your ideas that you're putting into action, are going to lead you to where you want to go. That's that intentionality, and that's kind of where I was at. But in your own words, like what is intentional living?
I mean, first of all, uh, a really good book that I read says a man with no vision would perish. So you have to visualize where it is you want to be. What do you want your life to look like? What do you want this situation to look like? Now that you have the visualization that's deep in detail, now what are you going to do about it? You have to be intentional about every step of that in order to make it come to fruition. Now, it's always going to be distractions, but the idea is if you're intentional about your movements, then the distractions won't even matter.
Yeah.
There you go.
Right. But so when you're working with someone definitely not as probably well versed as we are in this space that we work in, and also with the book, the great book that you quoted, might not be as familiar with it, so if you were working with someone, how would you kind of instruct them a little bit until getting into that intentionality, to moving into that, from this place of any way the wind blows, sort of, is an old school term, what I mean? But to being intentional about, okay, what is it that I want, and what do I need to do in order to get it?
Absolutely. So, of course, first you got to know what it is that you want. I mean, you don't just got to know, but you got to know that you know.
Mm.
And then even when you know that you got to know a little bit more. Like, it's got to be more than just a feeling. You have to actually uh, really dive into it. I always tell people to do a visualization of what you want your life to look like, and then take a day in that life and begin from the time you wake up, write out what you want that day to look like. Like, what are you going to wear? What does the sounds around you sound like? What does the room you wake up in look like? Your bed, the scent that you smell. Like, you got to go really deep into it so you can really not just visualize it, but see yourself in that moment, right? And then subconsciously, you'll begin to take steps to move towards that. Now, what do those steps look like? Well, an example that I use to put everything in perspective is I can never get a DUI. And every time I say that, people say, what you mean you can never get a DUI? It's possible for anybody. I can never get a DUI because I don't drink.
Right.
I'm intentional about not drinking. So therefore, I can't be in that situation. It's impossible. So analyzing what area of your life you want to change, then you got to make some decisions about what results you really want to have. And then we'll come up with some strategies you can take to be more intentional. It's pretty simple.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, and and I'm listening to you, and the way you explained that, with the example that you gave is actually really good, and that's kind of how, when I'm talking to the younger kids, and even some adults too, and I always tell them that there's a difference between decisions and choices, right? And so you got to know your difference between your decisions and choices. So your decisions are definite. So once you make a definite decision, that does not change. No matter who you with, no matter where you go, that doesn't change. But your choices may change. But if you are faced with a choice, you match that choice up against what your decision is already is. And if it is in line with your decision, then you're good to go. If it's not, then you don't do it. And so in that example that you gave, you don't drink. That's a decision. So when you're faced with a choice, drink and drive, of course not, because I don't drink. You know what I mean? So it just, as long as it lines up with your decisions, it don't matter what your choices are, because you will make the right choice as long as you keep in mind what your decision is. But the hard part about it, a lot of people don't know how to make decisions. You know what I mean?
That's why in many levels of leadership, the decision-making process is real teaching. Like, it's really deep. And there are some ideal steps to a decision-making process. But what I'll say is the hardest part about living an intentional life is being disciplined. You have to be disciplined enough to stick to what it is that you said you was going to do, what it is that you said you was going to do, and what it is that you really want. What is it? Like I said, you got to identify it first, and then you'll begin to take those subconscious steps.
Yeah, and like I said, I think people have a hard time making decisions. And I think part of it is because a lot of people don't actually know themselves, and even myself over the last, 3 years or so, I kind of went on a journey and getting into personal development and things of that nature to even begin to learn myself more, and there are some things that I thought about myself that I found out like, okay, that was right. There was some new things that I didn't even realize that I found out, but that's going on that journey of self-discovery and beginning to know who you are as a person. Then it makes it easier to kind of know what you want, because if you don't know who you are, it's hard to say what you want. You know what I mean? Because you don't have a definition of who you are as a person to even say, okay, this is what I want, this is what I like, this is what I don't like, and I think that's a big thing with our younger generation, and following the crowd so much and then being so influenced by other people, they don't really know their own identity. Like, who are you by yourself with nobody else, just you alone? Who are you? What do you like? What do you enjoy? You don't even know because you're so busy following the crowd.
You hit that right on the head, right? You hit that right on the head. That is one of the most powerful questions that I ask people all the time. And when I ask the question, who are you? The first thing that comes out is the titles.
Mm-hmm.
I'm a dad. Well, that's what you do. Who are you? I'm a husband. No, that's a role. Like, who are you? What is it that makes you happy? What is it that makes you sad that nobody knows about? What are the things that make you who you are every day that nobody else knows? Only you know. Like, no one else knows that if you are actually ticklish in this particular spot, unless you share that with them. But that's part of you. It's every little thing that makes up you. And we don't spend enough time really thinking about who we are. We just think about the things that we do that play a part in who we are. Yeah. It's a big difference.
Yeah, and I think, that, like I said, we think about who we are compared to what we do. Because I know, especially as men, the first thing we ask, that we identify when you ask a brother, who are you? The first thing we talk about is what we do, our titles or our job. And especially as men, we definitely kind of live through our jobs first. You know what I mean? Like, I'm a policeman, I'm a construction worker, or whatever it is that you do. That's kind of what we lead with, because as a man, it's like we work, and so we identify ourselves with the work that we do.
Society has built it that way, though. Think about it. When courting a woman, it's one of the first things she asks you, like, what do you do? She want to know if it's even worth her time. Because what are you doing with your time?
Right.
So I think that's part of why men lead with what they do. And what you said made a whole lot of sense, because, again, that book that I read said we were put here to work and cultivate, which means work. So I'm just saying, it might be the first thing that you speak about.
Right. Yeah. And I think so too, because that's one of the things that I say, because once we were given that command to work, you know what I'm saying? It's like, okay, that's our first commandment. Now that's what we have to do. And so I think that's why we lead with that, because it's kind of like, if you're not doing that, what are you doing? You know what I'm saying? If you're not providing for your family, if you're not, taking care of business and working in some capacities, like, what are you doing? And I think so that's why we as men find our identity, some of our identity in what we do, in the work that we do.
Right.
So going back a little bit, so like I mentioned about myself going on a journey, and within the self-development, because I was going through some changes, in my own life, going through a divorce and things of that nature, where I was like, okay, I need to take out some time to really pour into myself. And at this time, I came across Dr. Eric Thomas, and his teachings, and speaking of self-development. And so that started my journey of self-development. So I think that a lot of times it takes some kind of inspiration, but maybe that inspiration may come from something traumatic experience or something that happens in your life to make you say, okay, now I'm going to go on this journey, And so even in your speaking and your teaching with intentional living, what would be something would say, what would be the right time, or when would be the right time? It's like, okay, let's start, making these changes. Let's start doing this intentional living. And it's not just, not just being alive, but actually living.
Yes, exactly. So, man, I love that question, man. When should you start that process? When? One time you should start is when you feel an uneasiness. You know it's something that needs to change, but you not really sure what it is. That's when you need to draw in and look at yourself and analyze a few things, and then it'll come to you. So when you feel uneasy, that's when. But more especially, if you wake up and you're just completely frustrated, that's when. Honestly, the true answer to this question is right now.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, yesterday. No, for real, but like for real, the true answer is right now. Even if you began living intentionally yesterday, you can be a little more intentional today. You can be a little more intentional tomorrow. But the true answer is right now.
Yeah, I think that right now is where people get stuck at, right? Because a lot of times we have so many ideas and so many great things we want to do or create or be involved with, and the hardest part is to start, right? Like people get so stuck on starting. And I was talking to somebody the other day, and they were telling me, like, if people just started what they said they was going to do, they'll be farther ahead than 50% of the people in the world. And then if they hit a milestone or hit a something obstacle, and they kept going, that'll put them past the other 90, about 98%, because 50% of the people don't start. And then those that do start, when they hit the first obstacle or the first thing that goes wrong, it's like, oh, okay, I quit. But if you can, number one, start and then keep going no matter what, that's going to put you ahead of most of the population in the world.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And see, you said something. People don't know where to start. The truth is, many people try to eat the whole elephant in one bite. Mm-hmm. Just write it out. Write out some things. Take some time with yourself and brainstorm. Just get these thoughts off your head. What is it that you want? What is it that you want to do? Write it out. And then maybe you might just take one or two of those things and put a timeline to it. Don't put a stretched out timeline. Put a short timeline to it. Apply some pressure to you to make these things happen. And start. That's it. It might hurt. Okay. But did it kill you? No. No. Yeah. A little bit of pain never hurt nobody.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's that's what I said. I think that's like the hardest part though. And I remember listening to a speaker, and he was talking about what is the future you? Like what is the cost of the future you? But then what does the future you look like? And like you said, just taking that time to really think about, okay, what do I want my life to look like? What do I want that future to look like? And write that out. What do I want to live? What car do I want to drive? How much money I want to make? What do I want? How do I want my family structure to look like? And once you write those things out, then it's like, okay, look at where you want to go, right? And then look at where you are now and think of, okay, what do I need to do to get to that point? What do I need to do to get to that place? And a lot of times in this, the guy that was speaking, he was saying financial. He was speaking more financial, but number one, the financials is important, but even not just the financial, but just your day-to-day, like you said, your day-to-day life. What do you want that to look like? What time you want to get up in the morning? You know what I mean? Do you want to work days? You want to work nights? You want to live by the lake? You know, so you want to live off the beach? You know, just sitting down and making those decisions and coming to terms with yourself, like, you know what, this is really what I want, and then begin to reverse engineer to figure out what those steps is to get you to that point. And I think a lot of people, if they would just take the time to do that, you know, to write that vision and make it plain, it'll open up so many doors and so many things in their eyes where they can see where they're headed. And there's so many things that they can do. And I think that's a big problem too, because people don't know what they can do. Right? It's always looking at the glass half empty, I guess, and not realize, you know what, you have things in your hand that you can work with.
So the key thing too is once you figure out what you want, you got to also ask yourself that real question that you're going to chase for the rest of your life. Why? Like to get the answer to a why is revolutionary. You know, why is it that you want to do these things? Why do you want your life to look like that? Like you'll hear many entrepreneurial coaches say, you have to have a why. What hurts you? Or, you know, why are you doing this? It's got to be deeper than monetary, because at some point, maybe you'll make enough money and you'll just, what are you going to just stop doing it? No. Right. So you have to have a real deep why. Like it's got to hurt if you don't get this done. So find out what it is you want, but also you need to understand why you want that. And if your why isn't strong enough, you're probably not going to accomplish none of it, any of it at all. So
and that's one of the things that I teach myself is like, what's your why, you know, and what's your why and who's your who, right? Number one, why is this important to you, and who outside of yourself is this going to affect? You know what I mean? Like who's depending on you to do what you said you're going to do? You know, who would this directly affect? You know, and a lot of us, like myself, it'd be your kids. You know, like if I don't do what I need to do, then this is going to affect my children. You know, if I don't do what I need to do, this may affect my parents, you know. And so really finding out outside of yourself, because if it's all about you, you will let yourself down. You'll give yourself an excuse. You know what I'm saying? Like, oh, I'm tired. You know what I'm saying? Oh, I'm tired. Well, I just don't feel like it today, you know, and all of those things. Just like this recording. I just did a 10-hour shift and came home. I'm very tired, but we got to keep moving, right? I can't call you. I can't call you and be like, hey, we got to reschedule because I'm tired. You know what I'm saying? Like, this is important. Our messages is important. And my why of the reason why I do this is to help people, and someone is hurting that need this message today. And just because I'm tired don't mean I get to prolong their healing because I'm tired. You know what I'm saying?
Exactly. And so you said something else that was key. You know, many people will say the reason they do whatever they're going to do, they do it for their family. But did you know your why can also be your why to do it and your why not? Like I seen a woman entrepreneur beast out for her kids. But then I also seen her fall off because she can't do what she needs to do to provide for her kids, because she got to be there for her kids. She got to go to the school play. She got to go to the baseball game. She got to go to the football game. She got to go to the teachers' conferences. Are those things necessary? Yes. Do you need to play a part in that? Yes, because your kids probably need to see your presence, but you got to have some balance in that, because they can also be your why and your why not. So it's a fine line, man. It's if you don't navigate it right, you can hurt yourself on both ends of that. But none of that matters if you don't start.
Yeah, and I like that. I like that. Why not? And that's sort of I didn't necessarily ask the why not, but oftentimes when I'm talking to kids, especially the younger ones, and my thing is they always say, "What's wrong with?" Right? What's wrong with me doing this? What's wrong with me drinking? What's wrong with me smoking? What's wrong with? And I always say, don't ask what's wrong with it. Ask what's right with it. How is this how is this making you a better person? Whatever this thing is that you're doing, how is it adding value to you? How is it making you a better person? How is it building you even, or how is it helping you to become a better citizen, or a better son, a better daughter? How is it helping you? So what's good about it? I don't care what's bad about it. Tell me what's good about it, because some things is not necessarily bad, but it ain't good either. You know what I'm saying? Like, it's no good. So going back to what you were saying with that intentional living, we want to be doing things that's going to add value to us, that's going to enhance our lives, enhance us as people, as individuals. And if it ain't doing that, it might not be nothing wrong with it. But if you can't find out what's right with it, then you really shouldn't be doing it, because it's a waste of time.
See, a mentor of mine told me a great thing, and I hold on to it on the regular. Don't let something good keep you from being great. So maybe it is right, but is it great? I mean, you want to drink alcohol because it tastes good, but is it great? Probably not. Too much of it, and you're going to do some not so good things. You know what I'm saying? You're going to make some bad decisions. You damaging your body as well. But when you make great decisions, when you decide to do something great, there's a huge disparity between a good basketball player and the great ones. Just saying. You can start naming the great ones out the gate. But if somebody say, hey, name a few good basketball players, you'll go blank for a minute. Well, I mean, he's pretty good, but he ain't great. You know what I'm saying?
And I think that goes back to what you were saying earlier. The difference between good and great is that discipline that they have, and I know I myself have watched, sports videos about Jordan and Kobe and all of those people that hit that point where they're walking in their greatness. And the thing that makes them great is their discipline, and that why is they want to be great. And so they make all the sacrifices, and which we ain't even gonna get on to talk about sacrifices. The sacrifices that you make to be great, the sacrifices that you make, for your family, since you said that's what you're doing it for. You know what I mean? All those sacrifices that you have to make in order to get to where you're trying to get to and to accomplish the things that you want to accomplish. It takes discipline and it takes sacrifice. And all of that, again, going back to what you said, has to be intentional. We can't just wake up one day and think everything is just gonna go right. Like, no, it's a day-to-day process. It's a thought-by-thought process. You know what I mean? Like, what am I thinking right now, and how is this helping me? What can I do in order to make my day better and make my life better tomorrow?
Mm-hmm. You got to be intentional. Also, if you are intentional with your life, then you won't find yourself in unintentional situations. Like, how can you get caught robbing a store if you are intentional about not robbing a store, not stealing? You choose, I'm not going to steal anything. So how can you get arrested for robbery? Like, it's impossible. Just saying.
Going back to those decisions and choices, So you know what, Derrick, I thank you for being on, man. Thank you for taking out the time to share your knowledge and your wisdom with us, man. I definitely enjoyed the conversation. I want you to have the last word, right? And I want you to leave us with word of advice, inspiration, however you feel, and also leave us with your social media. I can't even think of what I'm trying to say. Social media stuff.
It's all good, man.
So that we'll be able to follow you and everything. So I'll give you a second to think about that. To my listeners, thank you guys once again for tuning in. Make sure you guys are checking us out on our websites, the dealhealfulfill.org. That's dealhealfulfill.org. which is where our main website, where you can find out more stuff about me, the things that I do as a speaker, workshops, and even a podcast. You can find that information there. Also, make sure you check out our inspirational teas at the number 2 Heal Teas, Deal to Heal Teas. And last but not least, also checking us out at ebooks by ejames.com. I have several ebooks that are there, including Forgiving Me, the 4 Steps to Self-Forgiveness, and also the 4 core, which is the 4 core values that every daughter should get from her father. So make sure you go to ebooks by ejames.com and check out the ebooks that I have there, and help us out, right? Also, I've been blessed to be a part of a organization called the Forgiveness Mission. And one of the things that we do is we hold free virtual workshops every quarter of the year, and we talk about forgiveness, what it is, what it's not, who is it for, forgiveness of self, forgiveness of the world. And you can go to forgivenessmission.com to register for that, or you can go to Eventbrite. So whenever you're listening to this, either one just ended or there's one coming up. So it's a free virtual workshop that we do talking about forgiveness, and I think it's a very important conversation, and that's why we do it. So make sure you guys go to forgivenessmission.com in order to check that out. And last but not least, I told you guys that I was going to tell you how you can win $100 from the podcast. You can win $100 from the podcast by joining our super subscriber contest, which means you must first subscribe to our YouTube channel, our Facebook page, and our podcast on Spotify. After you've done those 3 things, text the word WIN, WIN, to the number 866-326-0730 to qualify to win $100. The contest is ongoing and it's random, which means that anytime I can pull a name and you could be our next $100 winner. Also, when you text the word WIN, make sure you send your contact information. I have people that just text the word WIN and no name, no contact information. So even if you won, I don't know how to get in contact with you. So make sure when you text the word WIN, you also include your name, your email address, and your phone number so that we can contact you if you are our $100 winner. So, Mr. Derrick, once again, thank you so very much for being on. I really appreciate you taking out the time to be here with me and my listeners. And I want you to have the last word, so the floor is yours.
Wow. Hey, man, listen, I commend you. You have a lot going on, and you're doing a lot of amazing things. I'm really interested in that girl dad podcast. Since I'm a girl dad, I got three girls, and I got 4 boys. So, hey, yeah, I'm with it. I'm all about that.
I'd love to have you
on. A final word that I can leave your listeners with is simply this. Don't continue to live your life aimlessly by just wandering through life. Begin to be a little more intentional. So you don't have to be a lot more intentional right away. But if you begin to be a little more intentional day by day with just different steps in your life, be intentional and you'll begin to live a more intentional life. And like I said earlier, you can't find yourself in an unintentional situation if you're intentional. You'll be able to remove the statement, I don't know, out of your vocabulary. Just be intentional. That's it. That's me. That's Derrick Lamar, your motivational speaker / mental performance coach. You can find me on IG at Derrick Lamar _. You can find me on Facebook, Derrick Lamar. I also have a page, He Speaks, at Derrick Lamar. And my website is derricklamar.com. Book me for your next speaking engagement. I speak to schools, colleges, sales teams, as well as corporate organizations. It's all good. I'm here for you. Let's go.
All right. We can't end no better than that. To my listeners, thank you guys once again for tuning in to the Deal to Heal with E. James podcast. Well, my mission is to help people to deal, to heal, and to fulfill, to deal with your problems, to heal from the pain and to fulfill your purpose. Until next time, you guys be blessed. Thanks for listening to the Deal to Heal with E. James podcast. Remember to listen, like, subscribe, and share. This episode has been brought to you by Deal to Heal Teas. Put some inspiration in your situation. Wear an inspirational tea and be inspired all day. Let's go to dealtohealteas.myshopify.com. Remember, our mission is to help you to deal, heal, and fulfill. Deal with your problem, heal from the pain, and fulfill your purpose. Thanks for listening.